Hi, give me a second to find the feed. My usual. Good morning. I'm going to talk about Egypt today. Let's see. Give me a second to share this in my admin chats. Good morning. I do my usual day on a loop. I'll wait till some people get on here, but I like to wake up and check the energy out, assess the energy, right? I like to assess the energy and plan my day. So give it a sec. I'll give it a minute for some people to find us, but I want to start to talk about, I'm going to start talking about Egypt today, some symbolism. My main interest in these past places is how they affect us now, being here, learning now. I've always been into why are we here? What is the meaning of life? I always come up with some very deep questions now that I'm a channel to ask the universe about these kind of things in these past places. You'll probably notice, I said this before, that you probably have a lot of blocks in your Akashic as we're waking up and coming back into our spiritual abilities. A lot of people are learning how to channel energy, heal people, channel the Akashic and things like that. But you'll probably notice that if you're trying to dig around in some of these areas that you're hitting blocks, whether about yourself or others or collectively in whatever regard. You're probably noticing that there are some blocks. There are reasons why we can't remember our past experiences on so many levels. All right, Egypt. I'll just start with, like I said the other day, in order to understand Atlantis better, I can look at Egypt. I don't see anything from Atlantis. I see some channeled work from Plato. I see a lot of people channel a lot of information on it, whether it's Edgar Cayce or people like me, right, channeling. That's where most information about Atlantis comes from. As a channel myself, I use discernment with where I'm getting my information from, from who I'm getting my information from. Anyone can channel. I see everyone is a channel if you know me and my reality, right? It depends on, how purified we are. In ancient times, whether it was Atlantis, Lemuria, Egypt, they were teaching the same things. We're all here for the same reason. Doesn't matter what point in time. So when I want to understand Atlantis, I can look at Egypt. Some of the symbols I'm going to get ready to talk about are very familiar to people. We see them throughout the Matrix nowadays. So I want to talk a little bit about the Eye of Horus, the tattoo Sherry got on her neck. I want to talk really briefly about that, the eye symbolism. Some people call it the Eye of Ra as well, right? We see it throughout the Matrix. We see it on our dollar bill. If you live in America, right? We see the Illuminati eye. They have their own version of it though, right? We see how it's evolved throughout time. That is a symbol that the Masons are very into. They're very into the pillars too. The pillars, you see that in a lot of their artwork and things like that. Those were, while they look to be taken from Egyptian times, the Masons claim that they, I think they plundered and killed people for it, that they took this knowledge from Atlantean times to preserve it. We saw a whole thing of it with like, I guess you call them the Holy Crusades, right? The Crusades. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later because I want to talk about the symbolism of color too. So we see the eye throughout time. There's a lot of fear, right? We wake up and we see the eye is evil. It is the Illuminati. It is satanic. I see it all over the internet where I'll post a picture of like a girl with like a third eye kind of graphic and people will like have freaked out in the past. Like, you're satanic, you're evil, you're an Illuminati whore. The eye, there's a lot of different symbols that represent very similar things when I look at it. The eye represents consciousness. I've actually seen the eye of consciousness myself. Very similar to something like you might see from the Hubble telescope, the eye. Have you ever seen the Hubble telescope image? I don't know if I need to pull it up, right? Have you guys seen the Hubble telescope eye? I've had profound encounters where when I was opening my third eye, I began to like have astral out-of-body kind of experiences. So I've seen, you know, the eye of consciousness, I've seen that we all share one subconscious area, that we have one subconscious. While it may seem like we're all having these, you know, unique experiences and we're so separate around here, we actually share a subconscious. That's why it could be very powerful when people wake up and we begin to reprogram our subconscious minds. If we all share one and I start to reprogram my subconscious, would it not reprogram everyone's on some level? Hi, so we see a lot of these symbols. I talked I think last week about how a lot of these ancient languages were symbol based. That's very galactic to me. So, you know, Egypt already had a good start, but a lot of, you know, the enlightenment type of information that they got came from Atlantis. On so many levels. Same with Tibet, same with a lot of the places in South America. I see a similarity between my spiritual practices that I just had this awakening and started to tune into my own intuition and my own abilities. And I see such a similarity, like Dale was saying on his video, throughout these places with a lot of these spiritual practices. There was a divide during Egyptian times between Upper and Lower Egypt. I just know that I would have probably, we would have been in Lower Egypt. I just know, right? There was a divide. So then last night I'm putting this other stuff out about Set and Osiris and Isis and Horus and how, you know, he ruled Upper Egypt. There was this divide, but there was a time before that when Egypt was in perfect harmony, like Atlantis, where they used this spiritual galactic type information and they built this entire beautiful civilization that was very much in order and harmony on so many levels. Why do they hide our history? Because history tends to repeat itself. So like I said, a lot of our history has been forgotten. Anything prior to this cycle, right? There are records of that though, that people are starting to tune into and tap into as they're learning how to channel the Akashic. All right, the Eye of Horus, third eye, right? Third eye symbolism is huge in Egypt. We see the eye everywhere, eye hieroglyphics, right? They were teaching the same thing that I teach now, that it is possible to purify your mind, body, and soul to attain great power. That will also require, you know, a path of service and things like that. It's everything that I teach about how we can tune in to these abilities that we have encoded in our DNA. We can activate ourselves and, you know, they were teaching people how to become godlike. Egypt had attained a fourth dimensional level of consciousness. I feel like the fall of humanity is very symbolic of what we go through in our own journey this life, because we all made a fall, right? We all kind of made a fall this life. We all kind of descended in order so that right now we can ascend back up to source, to consciousness. So it's really symbolic too. So these places, they contained a lot of knowledge. What happened to Egypt? The Romans wiped them out. The Romans were violent, nasty people. If you don't believe me, look at the power structures in place. So these were places at the time that had attained very high levels of consciousness. We saw that they also plagiarized. Yes, plagiarized. The Bible is just a total plagiarization of some historical events, but mostly plagiarized deities that were recreated through these Egyptian deities. We see Set, very symbolic of the devil. We see Horus, very symbolic of Jesus. We see everything else like that they talk about could have very easily been plagiarized from some of these past places. So what happened was in Egypt, it was bad business for people to not need churches. We have this spiritual awakening that occurred in Egypt too, right? People are getting back to their divinity and realizing we're all one and we don't need churches, similar to what's happening now, hopefully. And that is bad business for the churches and the government. They can't control people anymore. So we know that there was kind of an overthrow of the ruler. A lot of the times when I watch these like ancient historical shows about England, it's always the same thing. Whenever there's a queen or king, there's people plotting against them, it seems. on so many levels. So there was a divide, and the first power structures involving churches and the government were put in place, right? It worked so good there that the Romans saw what was happening and decided they would kind of take it up a level. They pretty much destroyed a lot of that place, a lot of the world, things like that, and thus, you know, the European government and power structure that we still see very much in place today came to be. The knowledge that we taught during these times that was Atlantean, that was meant to liberate souls, it was meant to liberate people and teach people to be nice to each other. You're only harming yourself, and this is how reality works, and you guys can live a much better life here. And that we could be living on heaven and earth instead of hell on earth, because they're states of consciousness. So in a lot of ways, it's like where teaching goes so wrong. It's why so many people now may feel a little scared or outside of their comfort zone to be teaching. We learned a lot of karmic lessons, and we all carry, our whole consciousness group, a certain amount of responsibility for the things that happened. While it may not have been our intent to enslave people, it was the same information we brought here to try to help people that kind of went way off. I see a lot of with these religions, they're teaching you to go outside of yourself, worship this God, this deity, this Jesus, right? They're teaching you to look everywhere but within you for that consciousness, that energy, that universe, right? So they'll have you running around and looking in books and Bibles and churches and synagogues, right, for this spiritual knowledge that on a soul level we're all trying to seek on so many levels. Good morning. I want to talk about colors too real quick. I'm just all over the place with this. I'm trying to get organized in my life. I'm feeling amazing last night. Like, okay, I'm great. I'm integrated, right? I wake up this morning and I mean, the weather's kind of turning kind of crazy here already, and so I go to try to look at, you know, any kind of space information, which is iffy. It's like so inaccurate half the time. I go look at 10 sites and try to get a good gauge of what the government says is happening with the energy, right? So Wednesday looks like an interesting day energetically. We're going to need to bring these frequencies way up too. Like today and tomorrow, they're a little low for my liking to be flowing with. So we're going to need to get it together as light workers and light these spaces on fire. Light your life on fire. I don't know what it's going to take. We're going to need to burn this place down on every level to try to get these frequencies a little higher, because the energy is a little unstable, and I think it might be our fault. We need to learn how to ground a little better, stabilize, stay in that high frequency steady instead of having these little energy dips, things like that. Hi, we're talking mystery school. So I'm deciding what I'm going to wear to the rocks. Yes, this is all connected. So, you know, I've been doing a lot of research on colors. I'm very adept with aura colors, color symbolism. We see red, right? Do you ever see the woman in red Illuminati symbolism throughout the Matrix? They usually will have people in Hollywood with the red dress and the heels. Symbolism, right? They have it in the Matrix movie, I believe. The woman in the red dress, right? All right, so we see the colors have shifted that these priests and priestesses may have worn. So during Egyptian times, white was a color of purity and divinity. And the priests and priestesses and people that were very spiritual, not to mention most of the population were white too. That white was a very spiritual, connected kind of color for them, and they would wear a lot of white in these places. We saw a lot of shifts. I was wondering where the red came from the Druid capes. I got my answers, right? I like to ask weird questions. All right, so we see red, crusades, right? The Druids wear the red. During Atlantis and during Lemuria, people would either wear red or black too. So we see that some of these are carried down traditions. Red would be a color for warriors or the sacrificers. Now, I'm seeing a shift within the Roman Catholic Church where they're wearing the white and the green. Reptilian colors, right? I'm seeing shifts with the colors throughout time, but we can see a lot of these secret societies such as the Masons, right? They wear the hooded things. They wear the hooded robes and things like that. So I was doing some downloading on it just for fun. And whatever color robe that you're wearing, if you meditate with them on or you do spiritual practices with them on, they will amplify the energy in some type of way. You know, so we see black for a lot of occult type stuff, maybe sinister type magic, things like that. And these hoods are really good for amplifying magic, believe it or not. Hi. So we see a lot of, I'm live, getting ready for another live too. We're talking about Egyptian symbolism. We see a lot of it repeated out through the Matrix. So they took these symbols, the eye of, sorry, I keep saying eye of Horus, right? They took these symbolisms and then they tried to make them evil. Think about World War II, the swastika, what they did with that. Once you use something for the negative, though, whether it's technology, symbolism, it's very hard to make a positive again. Usually it's to just do away with it. It was similar to what happened in World War II. You see a huge influx of UFOs around that time on this planet. Think Roswell. You see a huge influx of UFOs when we tend to start wars and have crazy shit happening on this planet. So we see a huge influx of that on so many levels during World War II. They were using technology on this planet to destroy things that they shouldn't have had yet. Probably extraterrestrial technology, right, that they traded for experimenting on people, I'm not sure. But they got a hold of technology they should not have been using that was meant to be used for free energy sources later in a very negative capacity. Think about nuclear war, right? And things like that. So once they used it during World War II to destroy things, it could never be used as it was intended later for us as free energy. We see that with the eye, where they love to put it on their dollar bill and make it sound really satanic and evil on so many levels. We see the Masons use the eye. Their symbolism, like I said, all comes straight from Egypt. They just basically hold some of the same information on us as in the anatomy, how to make ourselves channels. But I believe that those organizations are opening themselves up as negative channels. They like some of the people that join those organizations like the power that you could feel possessed, right? You might feel like this illusion of power. So we see that this knowledge from Atlantean times is here. It's never gone anywhere. It's in the Matrix. We preserved a lot of it ourselves in places we could access later coming back into this Matrix. So it hasn't gone anywhere. But what is happening is the same thing that happened in Atlantean Egyptian times, where suddenly sects of people decided it would be better to hide this knowledge and to keep humanity at a low level of consciousness as worker slaves, instead of bringing up and raising up all of consciousness, which would raise us all up. Oneness, right? It will raise us all up so we can elevate higher. There were very real, organizations that hid this knowledge, would kill people over it. Look at the Crusades and things like that. Good morning. I'm just sending some good vibes out, just talking about some past stuff. Random past stuff. We're talking about the Eye of Horus today. We see it all throughout the Matrix, though, right? We see it everywhere. I could see like a yoga ad, right, with like the eye. We see it in a lot of ads too, because people might not recognize it, but on a subconscious level, you're going to be more drawn to this kind of stuff. So as we're seeing this awakening, we're seeing more like symbolism being put into ads and things like that. The eye is very symbolic. You're being watched. Did you figure out your life is an open book yet? I wish the global elite would. Did you figure out everyone's life is an open book? I see the eye in a lot of our aura pictures. Yeah, I was doing auric research before, right? Auric research before. I see the eye around a lot of people all the time, believe it or not. The eye of consciousness, as I said, I could only describe it. And this was from after an awakening kind of perspective as the eye of God. On some level, I could only really describe it like that. I'm reading this. We'll go to Ra now. I put some Ra pictures up. We'll go to Ra. He would have been the most important god in ancient Egypt. I'll tell some fairy tale stories too. He would have been the most important god. I did put up some of the lineage where it shows from the gods. I like this story a lot because number one, I know there is a god named Ra, but that's the name of my consciousness group. Maybe these deities were consciousness groups. I don't know. So it's so I really like that. I'm very drawn to that name, right? On so many levels. This would have been one of the main gods. The reason why he was so revered was because he was said to be a creator god. There are many gods, I say, right? But he was a creator god. He was said to have created this entire universe. And it's funny because in the Law of One, they talk about our matrix reality and who created it, and it wasn't actually source that created it. It was actually just a creator god. And that's what level we're trying to get to, right? We're trying to ascend and become creators like that on every level. So that would have been a very high attainment, that he would have elevated to a creator god status. It was said they didn't know his name. That might not have came later, until later channelings during our time when people really knew the name. It was said they didn't know his name, and that Isis had to trick it out of him with a snake. Yeah, she had a snake bite him, and then she had the only, you know, healing remedy for it, and she made him tell her his name to gain his power. Ra is symbolic of the sun. They've been worshiping the sun long before Jesus, right? It was so beautiful when I was at Stonehenge for the last, I think it was the winter one, yeah, the winter solstice, and watching the sun come up over those rocks. And, you know, people have been doing that as a place of worship, right? A way of worshiping nature and things like that. And it's really important to remember that before these rocks were worshipped, think about rocks being worshipped, Stonehenge, Easter Island, rocks were worshipped before Jesus, not before all of that. But before that, people would worship the energy, the seasons, their food growing, spring, fall, winter, things like that. So we see a lot of sun worship. Horus, son of Ra, right? We see a lot of that throughout this matrix. Things are hidden in plain sight, like the museum where everything was mislabeled. Like, even knowing what I was going in there looking for, it was really hard for us to find this stuff, right? Mislabeled, hidden in plain sight for sure. But it isn't all. It really isn't hidden in all plain sight. That's my problem I have around here. People will get really mad at me that we're part of certain organizations when I would say my whole problem with this whole matrix is knowledge being hidden on every level, and people act like we're not hiding it. Anyone can come access this knowledge, but I found that to be not true. So it is being hidden. A lot of these spiritual practices and teachings were done in secret, hence my mystery school class, right? A lot of these teachings were done in secret. Now I see why I have all these assholes that watch my video. Why do I want to teach them? That was our dilemma in Atlantean times. Do we really want to teach these people magic? Do we really want to wake up these people and teach them magic? Well, our lessons from these past places taught us, yes, we definitely do. We need to elevate all of consciousness, and we need to wake every person up here. We need to try our hardest to do that. So in past places, we chose not to. And we saw where that could lead us to, you know, kind of doing this journey. So as people are waking up now, I can only describe it like we had our abilities taken like bad kids, like the universe looks at us like small children. Small children trying to teach us the best it can. And, you know, that is a way that we can come back into our abilities, have this awakening, and, you know, have grown into them on so many levels. It took me like my whole life at the least to grow into my abilities and my role here on my mission on so many levels. So we're seeing this awakening happen. How about if I always looked at it like magic anyway? It's like black magic got used on humanity and we got put to sleep. What can undo black magic? Only magic, I heard. Well, thank God you're your own form of magic around here. You are the magic. Just yourself. Just your frequency, just your vibration. So if you ever feel like you can just sometimes reach through to people, wake them up, you can. You really can. On so many levels. Just with your frequency, your energy. I'm reading the comments. So we're going to have crazy energy on Wednesday. Let me think of what else I can talk about. I didn't have a good topic. I've been more so. So we're going to keep talking about the third eye. Alright, so this fits perfect because we're doing, tomorrow I'll do Awakening to Ascension, how to detox your third eye and how to decalcify it too. It's one of my favorite chakras. The Egyptians were very connected to the afterlife in the other realms. Their Book of the Dead, amazing. I put it on the wall. You guys should go get a copy on Amazon. Egyptian Book of the Dead. When you look at these things, when you look at these symbols, they will expand your consciousness. That's why I'm always wearing like weird clothes out in the Matrix. I like to wear like flower of life stuff, you know, third eye kind of shirts, alien stuff that might reach people looking at me or something. So I found that I always talk about this. One time I was in the Matrix and I'm at a restaurant and I had like a flower of life shirt on. And this lady was like 80 years old, and she kept on just staring at me, like staring at my shirt. And I was thinking, she might not know what that means, but it's going into her consciousness. It's loading into her consciousness and expanding it, right? It was like she's having some kind of recollection of it on some level. So the symbols are left for us as tools to expand our consciousness. You see a lot of history left throughout this matrix. A lot of spiritual history, right? Egypt is one of those places. Yeah, we have left codes and symbols and clues for ourselves all throughout this matrix. My next feed, I'm going to get into the Hopi and natives and how they correlate with Atlantis and some of these past places too. So there's so much spiritual information through these myths, symbolism, stories, symbols left everywhere, things like that. This history, we know that. Like I say that the UK has so much history here. They have so much energy imprinted in these buildings. Christ. Objects hold energy. Your house and buildings are no different. So there's a lot of things that are left from these places. And I grew up in a third dimensional planet going through this cycle. And this Egypt was a fourth dimensional place of consciousness at the least. And so when you're around some of these ancient artifacts, they're going to activate you and have an effect on your energy on so many levels, just like Stonehenge. These kids are your future. You know what happens when you raise your kids awoke? They grow up like me. You know what happens when you have wake parents that can see through the illusion, right? You're probably going to do a better job with not sticking them full of garbage and things like that. That really is your mission right now. And like I said, people have not been doing conscious parenting this whole cycle since these times. I want to tell you too, your kid is like a creation. We're talking about creator gods. And I'm just like doing what I do in the morning. I like to just meditate and get ready and download what I'm going to talk about on video. They gave me a topic today, third eye, right? Get my topic, and here you go. So, I'm really thinking about Ra as a creator god. Things I'm drawn to. I believe it was probably more like a symbolism or analogy for a galactic consciousness group. I'm not sure, but things I'm drawn to. And you want to talk about creation because I'm doing a lot of study with my own family and my own karmic patterns to better understand other people's, right? So that is a creator. When you have a kid though with someone, that is a creation, is it not? Is it not yourself, an aspect of consciousness branching off to experience yourself in another? And it's very symbolic of the story of creation, having kids around here, because in the beginning there was this infinite energy that became conscious and aware of itself in this matrix reality and created another and another and another, and we just keep branching off and creating more aspects of ourselves. And your kids are the closest aspect as you can get to your soul on so many levels. I like to look at them as future incarnations of yourself too. Yeah, no joke. You ever notice your kids look just like you? Yeah, I know you think it's because you're related, but you'll notice other people tend to look like you too in this matrix. Sometimes it could have been karmic partners, soulmates, things like that, right? Branching off. We each have our own reality in our own universe. And I'm at lunch with my husband the other day, and he says, look at that couple right there. They look exactly alike. I said, yeah, they're karmic partners. I said, yeah, do you get it now? I said, every person has their own universe. I know you think that we're all in one collective reality. I have my own entire universe, every person in it included. And so do you guys on so many levels. Look at the difference between you and your parents on spiritual levels and where you're at as a soul. These kids are always so much more evolved than us. That's why I really look at it like yourself in the future. Future incarnations of yourself on so many levels. The trick is to let them have their own version of reality and not to try to force them into ours, because they have better ways of doing things, you'll find. They can create better realities. It was always my dilemma in this matrix. Everyone always wanted to keep me in their reality, and I just could always make better ones. These kids don't go through the same ascension process. Scientifically, they can show that these kids are being born with different organ placement, completely different genetics, DNA, things like that, things that they aren't telling people, right? These kids are coming fully activated, so they're amazing channels, especially before they go to school age, like before they get crazy indoctrinated. By the time you're usually 12, by like 12 and 14, you start to turn into a robot in the Matrix. But kids are more pure, they're more connected to source. They haven't been all screwed up like us. They didn't have the same ride as us. They didn't need that, right? They're more evolved souls. Why would they need to go get all banged up in the Matrix? So most of these kids have attained rainbow soul status. Now, my problem is it's almost like being a projector in a world of manifestor generators for these kids. So they're coming onto this planet that had this crazy influx of indigo souls that were sent here. The warriors. The system busters, the warriors, right? The badasses. And then we see this wave of rainbow children that came to this planet, and they're much more sensitive energetically, like emotionally, energetically. Those are their gifts, emotions, right? Energy, things like that. They're much more sensitive souls. So they're growing up in kind of a place where people are starting to wake up. I couldn't even imagine, because I grew up during Y2K, and when they said the world was gonna end with the Mayan calendar, right? That's when I was a kid growing up, going through some of that stuff, right? And that'll really like snap you to it. The whole planet might just end tomorrow, right? Like all the time. It was when that end time prophecy started. Really, when I started coming through this matrix, they were having like, you know, a Christian, the world will end prophecy every day. These kids are waking up or growing up in a time when people are waking up to the government is poisoning us, experimenting on us like lab rats and things like that. And it's so crazy to me because they have much more toxicity they're facing. You see, they're amping up their vaccines and their medications and the things they do. I'm reading these. Good morning. How are you doing? How's this conscious parenting doing? I woke up, I said last night, like, all right, bring it on, universe. I'm ready. I'm integrated. Yep, it's going to happen Wednesday. We're supposed to go up to K5. I don't know that it'll happen, though. I predict K3. I get excited when I see, like, space storm alert. I woke up this morning and they're like, cosmic ray alert. Yeah, if you have, like, mental health issues, anxiety, bad immune system, cancer, things like this kind of energy could aggravate these kind of things, but they're just bringing it to the surface. Some people feel like darkness is attacking them. No, it's just being released. It's your own garbage coming to the surface. No one's attacking you ever. Get that mentality out of your mind. You're just healing so much. I was having crazy sleep experiences. Anyone else? You know, we want to talk about the third eye. Once you open it, that is your connection to the other realms, right? On so many levels. So all you got to do, and so we think that this knowledge is not here. Then why are they dumping fluoride in our water? Then why are they vaccinating everyone? Why are they doing this stuff? This knowledge clearly, you know, is very well known as to the body, how to break it down, how to damage people. So I know we think that these people are not awake, but the people that built these structures sure as hell were. Sure as hell were. I'm reading the comments. So we just see everything repeating. When we want to talk about Egypt and what went wrong, look around now. It's not any different. It's just been evolving. Just been evolving out of that. And I think that humanity is at a place where we're ready to set aside stupid egoic needs to live in a better place for everyone at this point. Like, I look around here at what we built and it looks like a shithole. This is where we're at. I look around. Yeah, these beautiful cities they talk about, so beautiful. I see ghetto areas with everyone crammed in and these shithole houses and them just trying to keep everyone down and working for very little money and the whole structure. They built some gorgeous places in past lives. They built some beautiful civilizations. Egypt, Atlantis were definitely a couple of them. Beautiful civilizations where they had attained a oneness with everyone. Everyone knew their place and was states of bliss. They knew their place. They were happy with the way they had it set up. They didn't do prison planet like us. They would donate their time to service, like on a schedule a lot of the time. They didn't work like slaves all the time. I know that they tell you in the Bible it was a place of slaves and everyone worked and things like that, but there's actually been no historical evidence to show there was ever slavery in Egypt. Hi, John. Gridding your rooms. You're for sure getting not only scanned, that's why I want to ask, anyone having like extraterrestrial experiences, crazy things they can't explain. You could just be like waking up real sweaty, like you've been purging all night. There's definitely crazy things happening. That's why I love looking at the human resonance and things like that. I'm very tuned into the dream states, like probably better than I am here on a lot of levels. What is happening, the best I can describe it, is we're becoming more lucid in our dream experiences. So if you're lucid dreaming, you can go find your friends easy. You can just think of someone. You can view your future experiences. You can change things, your lessons coming up. You can travel. You can go see the universe, right? And so, you know, that's what we're learning, that we are that astral body. That's the form that you take on when you die. It's no different than having a dream. Everyone is terrified of dying, but to me, it was like the most amazing place to be, right? We're talking about unlimiting ourselves from our physical body. For so many people, these physical bodies have become a prison for the soul. Yeah, prison for the soul, on so many levels. So we're talking about liberation and making ourselves multidimensional again through this detoxification process. And it was no different than the things that they were teaching in Egypt. I was talking to someone about the vitamin list and, you know, some of the herbs that they would use there. They would use a lot of blue lotus and blue vervain. I love blue lotus. I was smoking it in my weed. I noticed a lot of shamans in California smoke it. And me and Desiree were smoking it because it's supposed to help you lucid dream. And since we're in a lucid dream now, I figure if we smoke it while we're awake, it might wake us up more within the dream, right? Make us more lucid. It's really good for teas and things like that. The blue vervain was powerful in spiritual purification, but it's also powerful in spiritual protection. I see a lot of people, you know, going through their own darkness still, crying about entities and getting attacked at my wall another day at the office. If anyone's having any kind of spiritual issues, nightmares, bad dreams, crazy astral encounters, take some of that blue vervain. It'll spiritually protect you on new levels. You know, they knew that things like Mercury could bind a soul, and things like spiritual purifications could liberate it on every level. So a lot of the things, we see the Book of the Dead too was magic. Egyptians understood every word was magic. Every thought you had was magic, and to be very careful, right? This was also, you know, hinged on a purification of the mind on every level in our thought process and the things we're putting out there. The Egyptian Book of the Dead is a magic book. We saw it in the museum in Britain, right? It wasn't labeled. You couldn't tell what it was. Famous book on Amazon. They don't even label it, right? But I learned getting ready for that Egypt museum trip that it was a book of magic. Book of spells. A lot of the stuff that they wrote that was left on their tombs and, you know, in some of their temples and things like that. Protection, spells, magic. Good morning. Hi, Dijinja. Can't say your name. We're going to have to get you on video so I can learn how to say it. So I'm manifesting more videos while I wrap up my talk on Egypt, right? I'm manifesting more videos. I'm going on the Witches Hour on Saturday. I'm real excited about that because it will really kind of like, I'm not a witch, but they put out was an alchemist on the ad. But everything I do is magic, so it just fits my theme. I was putting out vibes to do some more like collaborations with people, you know, you guys. Get you on my video, just chat, right? I feel like I can just talk about anything interesting with anyone awake at this point, right? We could have the best conversation, coffee and a chat. So I'm doing this podcast. It's on Spotify and Google called The Witches Hour. How appropriate. We put it out on my page already, and I'm going to do it Saturday at 5 p.m. UK time. So I figure this guy probably interrogates witches for a job. Questions witches on radio. Witch interrogator. I can't wait to see how it goes. I'm so excited about it though too. And I added him to our groups too. He has a witch group. I might have to try to see if I can collaborate on it if I like the thing, like the project, right? I'm always looking for new friends. So I'm making new friends. This guy came to my page and I knew right what he came for. So I don't like to go around looking for my manifestations. You know, going around and looking and trying to do stuff. I like to sit at home, and if I want to manifest something, I put out the vibrations, the energy for it, and it will come to me. It's much easier than everyone learning how to run around in Prison Planet to get things done on so many levels. So this guy came and found me. I knew why he came. It was like the day before I put out the vibe. The next day, it came to my inbox. It came to my page. How appropriate. We've been having witch problems. How appropriate. I was like, of all the things, I don't know if I need to be a little more specific with my manifestations at this point too. I'm thinking this morning, maybe I should be like more specific with what kind of channels I'm trying to go on. Enlightenment kind of channels. We will see. I don't know. I'm still learning with my abilities, but we're finding as the frequencies are going up that we can instant manifest on all new levels, that as these frequencies are continuing to go up, that we're really like much more so instant creating our reality, and we have to be much more careful with our thoughts. If you guys are having low vibe thoughts about yourself or others, it'll make you sick as these frequencies are going up. Yeah, it's going to make you physically ill. It could make you nauseous, your stomach upset, right? Ascension type symptoms. It's not going to be a vibrational frequency with the energy. When we're having fearful thoughts, it will completely drop you down in frequency. And I still have some people that are like doing their mission and they have these like, oh my God, right? I feel in over my head any day of the week, right? I'm going on the Witches show. Sherry's like, did you listen to it? I'm like, no, I'm just gonna do my usual and show up, right? Show up. I'm usually in over my head, but you'll notice I haven't drowned. I always am expecting to at any given minute, but I haven't. So, you know, we have to really let go of any of that 3D fear, doubt, negative self-talk. Yeah, I know you guys do it. Like, that fear, that is negative self-talk, that you can't do something, it won't work out, this person isn't cool, whatever it is, these kind of thoughts. Time to purge them out. They're done. All right, the dream. Why is so much happening in the dream world? Because there's no free will there. Some people are assholes here. I try to reach them. They don't want to. They don't want to heal. They don't want to take the vitamins. There's people that have been in these groups listening to my videos for 3 years and are not taking the vitamins. Just take some vitamins, take some better food, get some good water, right? So a lot of people aren't willing to put the same level of work into this that we are. And so in the dream world, we can make a big difference as healers. No free will. People have to respect free will, as we know, right? And that's how these arts became dark. Anyone can be a practitioner of energy healing or magic, but there are very few that will be service of others on that path. That's what we'll set aside, you know, the initiate in every aspect, your intent. What is your intent with this energy, with this magic, right? So there have been many throughout time that have been able to harness and channel these same elements, right? It's up to us whether we use it for good or bad. The universe is an energy. It's up to us how we direct and channel and focus that energy, whether we make it positive or negative on any given moment. I always try to tell people it's the same divine energy though. So, these were people that taught a path of service. They were very places that were wrapped up galactically. Not only were they channeling galactically, there was a mass ship landing on this planet during Egyptian and Atlantean times. Physical landing. That's why I encourage people to ask for more galactic assistance. People don't realize if everyone just asked, we could have something like that happen again in outrageous kind of levels. Free will, like I said, right? We had to ask. Sometimes people just forgot what to ask for. So we did see that these places were very galactically intertwined on so many levels. In the physical too. I think that the reason why people aren't seeing the interdimensional as much going through a third dimensional perspective is because we can't perceive that around us. And so, you know, as we're opening our third eye and going through this ascension process, we're able to perceive more and more of the spiritual around us. The spiritual wants us to see it. You'll notice when you take your aura pictures and you see orbs. I see tons of orbs, right? The little dots. All different colors. So that means that your angels are trying to show themselves to you. It's just like aliens, angels, anything like that. The interdimensional has to choose to show themselves to us on whatever level. They don't just crash like Roswell without intending it. It wouldn't happen. That they had to allow us to see them on so many levels. I think that Roswell happened, like I said, around World War II. I don't know the dates. I'm not a historian in any regard, but I would say that, you know, that all of a sudden a craft falls to Earth because people were acting like assholes, fighting with each other, trying to blow the planet up, you know, genocide, things like that. And so that would probably open up the government's eyes to, you're not alone here. Like, I know that people think that they can destroy this planet, not realizing it affects many life forms and many planets that people live in here. So, more vitamins, more tuning in through your dreams. So your dream is a meditation. Alright, your dream is the most powerful form of meditation you can have. Clears your energy, it can recharge you. Set intents before sleep. I do almost every night for different things. Whether I want to go somewhere, see someone, know something. if I need to know like some type of information, I can ask the universe, and the universe will probably show me the answer in my dream that I'll remember, or you know, some type of stuff like that. Set intentions before you go to sleep. The Egyptians understood that everyone is like looking at death like you die. Well, we know that with any kind of ending comes a rebirth and a renewal, right? Your story ends, a new chapter began, right? So we look at the Christian version of death. That's what everyone got indoctrinated to, mainly around here. But the Egyptians understood reincarnation and the soul's journey, and that, you know, you would die and you would go through this journey through the afterworld, right? They're really talking about the other realm, and they were much more connected to it on so many levels. Weed. I'm getting ready for my day of work. I thought I'd fit a video in real quick, so if I smoke on video, I can fit in an extra video a day. I've been doing it for probably like a year now. I'm just kidding. 6 months, right? I can fit in more video content if I'm, you know, smarter with my time I'm finding. So I know a lot of people are like, I don't have time for self-care. You're going to find that taking care of your vessel, your body during this ascension is the key to all this. So there's nothing more important. I see a lot of people around these groups that are just kind of like living, eating, and breathing ascension. And, you know, that would be that would be just like your past life, right? Because in a lot of these past places, we had no other purpose other than to act as, you know, gateways between worlds, channels, and we were into the same, you know, journey, purifying the body, the mind, and the soul to achieve these very high levels of consciousness. You can't raise your frequency overnight. I'm always saying that. So it's a gradual process. You know, we're going through this ascension process, and it's not like in past times where groups of people would choose these spiritual paths. Now everyone's kind of getting awakening to this spiritual path and this spiritual journey and this ascension. In past times, certain groups of people would have been attempting these ascensions, very small ones. Look at Jesus and the disciples, right? That was ripped off too, so we can use Jesus as a good historical account of Egypt in a lot of ways. Very small group of disciples he was teaching ascension to, I believe 12. Very symbolic of past times where they got these stories from Egyptian times and things like that. Very small groups of people would have been, you know, attempting to do this ascension together. Let's see. I'm reading the comments, so I'm about to get off in a second. I'm just trying to think about anything else to add in. So we're trying to get back to this. When we look at Egypt, we see deities living with people, among the people, right? They would have walked among the people. They talk about a time on this planet when the gods would have walked among us, and we're trying to get back to that. I like that they have the animal face gods. So does anyone think it's interesting that we have like artifacts that look like straight aliens, animal face people? This is our history, right? We have alligator face people, bird face people, lion face people, right? We have all of these deities that don't appear to be exactly in the human form. They appear to be hybrids of some sort. And I've always said that this planet is kind of like a genetic experiment, but do people not find that funny that that is our history, that these are actual deities and that's what they looked like? And you can look back even older than that and look at a lot of native cultures, and they have a lot of artifacts that show like ancient astronauts looking modern. Modern time ancient astronauts in their art and things like that. I believe that a lot of the deities that came from Egypt came from Atlantis, but they were actual extraterrestrials living among us that were sent to teach, and instead they were worshipped like gods, kind of like Jesus, right? We see a lot of that. People ignoring the message and building entire religions based on the messengers, in whatever regard. The scarab, that's amazing too. It's funny, I was looking at some Egypt stuff online, and I got this notebook, and I think Vanessa had it. Someone had it on the wall, and she said she was really drawn to it. I found out what it is. I'm going to stalk her and show her. I found out what it was. It was like a book of Osiris, and I found it on there. The scarab is powerful. When I think of the scarab, I think of not just a symbolism of consciousness, but of your skull. If you're doing this ascension process, your body's going to go through, not exactly in order, a certain upgrade. You'll probably have your spiritual awakening, which is going to really affect your third eye. Usually people have like a rapid third eye opening. They'll start to have crazy dreams, visions, start to sound crazy, things like that. We go through this heart chakra expansion. Your heart chakra, just like the earth, is responsible for your entire electromagnetic field. So the more open your heart chakra is, the more expansive your energy will be. So your energy field begins to expand as your heart chakra does, right? A lot of people that are asleep have these little tiny constricted auras. Hopefully when I walk in a room, my aura will just take up the whole room one day. Right? Expansion on every level. Now the scarab, your head is going to go through a certain process. And I can only describe it like the scarab is symbolic of your brain. And it is going to expand open, like your head is going to grow, it will expand. Your crown chakra, as it opens, will kind of expand your head, your brain. The back of, your crown chakra as well, at a different point, will probably upgrade too. So a lot of people first go through front, third eye headaches, top of the head, maybe back of the head ones, and then maybe lower neck ones as your head is expanding. That's very symbolic of the scarab. On so many levels, it really is representative of the brain, just as the third eye is. So are a lot of their other symbolisms. So what are they directing us towards? They left these clues. They knew we would be asleep at this time. We would have done this fall. Here we are waking up, and they were leaving us clues. What are they directing us towards? The human body. The pillars, very symbolic of the divine feminine and the divine masculine in balance. As like I said, the Masons love these symbols too. And it's also symbolic of a state of consciousness in between asleep and awake. Not necessarily awake, but I mean like when you are waking up from the sleep state. People are saying they don't remember their dreams, and it horrifies me. I think that everyone, when they wake up, like I know you just woke up and you don't feel like it, but for like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, when you first open your eyes, start to try to remember your dreams the best you can, even little glimpses. If you do that every day, they'll come back more and more. So this recollection of another reality can really help us learn how to better navigate this one while we're here awake. So your dreams can give you so much information, things you know to be true about consciousness that you can see with your own eyes and things like that. Okay, I'm getting off of here. It definitely heals us to be around the right energy on so many levels. I was telling someone about when I made my first group and how overnight it got like so many members, like instantly. But it, like in ancient times, people knew that to come together with the right awakened people was very, very powerful. You'll notice that a lot of these ascensions were made with groups of people coming together. You're not going to ascend on your own ever. As you're doing your ascension, you'll come more and more into focus with your soul group. That can be a little confusing at times when you're first awakening as to who those people are. But, the longer that you're doing this ascension, it will become more and more clear. You're going to be losing a lot of people on this journey that you might be vibing with now and getting along amazing with. Not everyone is, putting in the same amount of work or holds the same frequency. So as we're doing a lot of work and doing what we should be, we're going to be losing people too. Learn how to let people come and go and just go with the flow. I've had people I lost that come back to me like a year later, and I'm just like, oh, hey. Learn how to let people come and go around you. You'll notice that you're probably learning with much different people than you were 10 years ago. So learn to kind of go with the flow. Doing this ascension, it's important to realize that no one understands where we're headed. The universe loves surprises. Look at your own story, right? The universe loves surprises and things like that. So it's important to just kind of go with the flow with these energies, because the universe is always changing its direction and where it is headed anyway as everything's kind of happening. All right, love and light.